Welcome to the Allison Knows podcast. Let's just dive right in. Today we're looking at Solomon's prayer for wisdom. And honestly, it's kind of like a blueprint for good life.
Okay.
You might be surprised how relevant this ancient king's story is even today.
Yeah, it's amazing how much these old texts can still speak to us today. Solomon's prayer has a lot to say about leadership and service and how to align your life with like a bigger purpose.
Okay, so to get us started, we've got a bunch of study guides and biblical passages, of course. And we've even got this awesome sermon by Myron Golden. So Solomon, the son of King David, gets the throne. He's super young and inexperienced. Can you even imagine having all that responsibility?
Oh yeah, he must have felt totally overwhelmed. But what's interesting is that he didn't ask for wealth or power or a long life, the things most people would want. He actually asked for an understanding heart. He wanted to be able to judge God's people fairly and be able to tell the difference between good and evil. It's all right there in 1 Kings 3:7-9.
That's so interesting. It really shows you what he cared about most. Why would he pick wisdom over everything else?
I think it shows a lot about his character. He knew that true leadership takes more than just power and possessions. He knew that to be a good leader, he needed to make good decisions. He had to see the bigger picture and know the difference between right and wrong.
I never thought of it like that. But is wisdom always the answer? Are there times when courage or strength are more important?
That's a really good question. I think all of those qualities are important, but maybe wisdom helps you to use them better. It's like having a map and compass when you're out in the wilderness. You need courage and strength to get through the tough parts. But wisdom helps you choose the right path from the beginning.
I love that analogy. And this is where Myron Golden's take gets really interesting. In his sermon, he says that Solomon's prayer wasn't really for Solomon at all.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. When you look closer at the prayer, it's all about pleasing God and helping other people. It's almost like Solomon is saying, God, give me the wisdom to do what you want me to do in a way that honors you and helps the people you put in my care.
Wow, that changes everything. True wisdom isn't selfish then, is it? It's about being part of something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. When you focus on something outside of yourself, it gives you a sense of purpose. It doesn't mean you lose your individuality. It just means you recognize that you're part of something bigger.
I can see how that could be powerful. It's like finding your place in the universe.
Exactly. And Golden says that this kind of thinking can actually help with depression. When you focus on the needs of others and on doing something meaningful, you find a kind of fulfillment that goes beyond your own problems.
That makes a lot of sense. And it ties in with the idea of putting God's kingdom first, which is something you see in both Solomon's prayer and the Lord's Prayer in Matthew 6:9-13.
You're right. Thy kingdom come is a big part of both prayers. And Golding doesn't think it's about waiting for some future event. He thinks it's about making God the king of your life right now, letting God's way of doing things guide your decisions.
Okay, so we're talking about thy kingdom come. What does that even look like? Is it about waiting for something to happen in the future? Or is it something you can experience right now? How would you describe living as if God were king?
That's a deep question. I think it starts with lining up your values and actions with the values of God's kingdom, like love, compassion, justice, and service. It's about making choices that reflect those values, even in the little everyday things.
So it's not just about saying the words, but actually living them out.
Right.
That's a big challenge.
Yeah.
If this conversation about finding your purpose is speaking to you, be sure to check out Allison Knows on YouTube. She's got tons of inspiring content there. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.
It definitely takes effort, but the idea of kingdom culture, like Golden talks about, is really exciting. It's about creating a world where those values are real, a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect.
That sounds amazing.
Right.
But is kingdom culture just a dream? How can it work in a world that's so focused on selfishness and competition? Can we really live by these values in a practical way?
That's a really good point. It's not about creating a perfect world. It's about living out those values in your own life, like in your family, your work, how you do business, how you use your money. Even small acts of kindness and justice can make a difference.
That's encouraging. It means that even in a world that can feel chaotic and selfish, we can still be a force for good.
Absolutely. And it all goes back to that main idea in Solomon's prayer, asking for the wisdom to know right from wrong, to make decisions that line up with God's will, and to live a life of service.
It's like Solomon was giving us the foundation for a good life, a life that really makes a difference. And it all starts with that simple prayer for wisdom.
And the best part is that it's a prayer anyone can pray, no matter where you are in your journey. It reminds us that we don't have to have it all figured out. We can come to God with all our limitations and doubts and ask for his guidance.
It's like Solomon saying, God, I'm young and inexperienced, but I want to lead these people well. I need your help.
Mm.
And God honored that humility.
And that humility is so important for all of us. It helps us to be open to learning and getting guidance. And to admit when we need help, it's the opposite of being self-absorbed, which can actually stop us from growing.
Golden says that focusing too much on yourself can actually lead to depression. When we're too focused on ourselves and our problems, we miss out on the joy of connecting with others and making a difference.
That's such a powerful insight, and it's something you see in the Bible too. In Matthew 6, Jesus warns us about doing good deeds just to show off. It's about having a pure heart and really wanting to help, not looking for recognition or praise.
It's about doing the right thing just because it's the right thing, not because you're trying to impress someone.
Which can be hard in today's world. With social media and everything, it's so easy to get caught up in how you look to other people and forget what really matters. But true kingdom culture is about authenticity and integrity and a genuine desire to serve.
It's about not needing other people to tell you you're good enough and focusing on doing what you believe in. And Golden reminds us that we all have something to offer. We might look at Solomon, who had the wisdom to lead a whole nation, and feel like we're not good enough. But God can use each of us in our own way, no matter how small or unimportant we might feel.
It's about taking a step of faith and trusting that God will give you what you need to make a difference. And it might look different for everyone. It might be helping out in your community, or using your talents to create something beautiful, or fighting for justice, or just being there for the people around you.
I love that. Everyone has a part to play in building this kingdom culture. And Golden has this really interesting interpretation of the story of Joseph in Egypt. I never would have thought to connect it to Solomon's prayer.
Yeah, he uses it to show how even selling can be a way of serving others. Joseph managed Egypt's grain supply during a famine, and he ended up saving a lot of lives. It's a great example of how planning and managing resources can really help other people.
It reminds you that even everyday jobs can be acts of service if you do them with the right attitude. And it ties into the idea that you can become prosperous by putting God's kingdom first.
It's an amazing principle. When you follow God's will and focus on helping others, abundance often follows. It's not about chasing money, it's about focusing on what really matters. And then the resources you need often just appear.
Like what happened with Solomon. He asked for wisdom, and God gave him understanding and riches and honor. It's like that verse in Matthew 6:33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.
Exactly. Golden says that money and success are like bonuses. They come from following your God-given purpose. They're not the goal themselves. They're the natural result of living a life that's focused on something bigger.
It's about getting your priorities straight, focusing on pleasing God and helping others, and trusting that everything else will work out.
That's the secret to a truly fulfilling life. Living with purpose, making a difference in the world, and experiencing the joy that comes from serving something greater than yourself.
And it all comes back to that simple prayer for wisdom. The kind of wisdom that helps you make good choices, that shapes your character, and that helps you make a real difference in the world.
And that's a prayer we can all pray. We can all ask God for the wisdom to live out our purpose, to serve others well, and to make the world a better place.
If you're enjoying this conversation, you might also like the stuff on Allison O's YouTube channel. She talks about these kinds of things all the time. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We love hearing from you.
It really makes you think about what success really means, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're always chasing money and fame. But Solomon's story is like a whole different way of looking at things.
It's like he's saying there's more to life than just stuff. It's about being part of something bigger than yourself, finding a purpose and a meaning that comes from serving something greater.
And what I thought was really cool was how Golden connected Solomon's prayer to the Lord's Prayer.
Right. Both prayers are all about putting God's kingdom first.
It's about surrendering to a higher purpose, trusting in God's plan even when we don't get it.
And Golden says that kingdom come isn't just about waiting for something to happen in the future. It's about letting God into your life right now. Letting God's way of doing things guide your decisions.
It's like taking a deep breath and letting go of the need to control everything.
Exactly. You realize that God is much wiser and more powerful than you are.
It's a really freeing feeling, isn't it?
It is.
It reminds me of something we talked about earlier, that idea of kingdom culture. Golden makes it sound like it's not just some impossible dream, but something we can actually create and be a part of.
Exactly. It's about making a culture that reflects God's values, like love, compassion, service, and justice.
And it's not just about doing big, impressive things. It's about how we live every single day.
It's about the choices we make, how we
Mhm.
treat other people, how we do business, how we use our money.
So it's about bringing those kingdom values into everything we do.
Exactly. It's about making our actions match our beliefs, even in the smallest things. It's about choosing kindness instead of judgment, forgiveness instead of bitterness, generosity instead of greed.
Those are tough choices sometimes.
Yeah.
And they all come back to the idea of serving others, which is what we've been talking about all along.
Right. Golden says that serving others doesn't have to be about doing something huge or heroic. It's about the everyday things, the little acts of kindness that can make a big difference.
Like just lending a hand, or saying something encouraging, or just listening to someone with compassion.
Exactly.
And he even challenges us to think about how we treat people who can't do anything for us in return. The people who are often overlooked or ignored by society.
It's about seeing the image of God in everyone and treating them accordingly.
And that makes me think about how we define success. We usually think it's about money or status, but maybe true fulfillment comes from making a positive difference in the world.
I think so. It's about using your gifts and talents to serve a purpose bigger than yourself. And that's something everyone can do, no matter who you are or what your situation is. Whether you're a student, a parent, a business owner, or retired, you have something special to offer.
I love that. We all have a role to play in building this kingdom culture. And Golden had this really interesting take on the story of Joseph in Egypt. It's not something I would have connected to Solomon's prayer, but it made me think.
He uses it to show that even selling can be a form of service. Like Joseph managed Egypt's grain during a famine and saved a lot of lives.
Right.
It's a powerful example of how planning and managing resources can have a huge impact on people.
It reminds us that even ordinary jobs can be acts of service if we do them with the right heart. And it ties into the idea that prosperity can be a result of putting God's kingdom first.
It's an incredible principle.
When you focus on doing God's will and helping others.
Often abundance follows. It's not about chasing after riches, it's about focusing on what truly matters.
And then the resources you need just seem to appear. Like what happened with Solomon. He asked for wisdom, and God gave him understanding, riches, and honor.
Exactly.
It's like that verse in Matthew 6:33. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you.
Golden emphasizes that money and success are like bonuses. They come from following God's plan for your life. They're not the goal in themselves. They're the natural overflow of a life that's aligned with something much bigger.
It's about getting your priorities straight, focusing on pleasing God and helping others, and trusting that everything else will fall into place.
That's what a truly fulfilling life is all about, isn't it? Living with purpose, making a difference in the world, and experiencing the joy that comes from serving something greater than yourself.
And it all goes back to that simple prayer for wisdom. The kind of wisdom that guides your choices, shapes your character, and helps you make a real impact on the world.
And that's a prayer we can all pray. We can all ask God for the wisdom to live out our purpose, to serve others well, and to create a world that reflects his love and compassion.
And speaking of wisdom and making a difference in the world, if you're enjoying this conversation, you might also enjoy Allison Knowles' YouTube channel. She talks about these kinds of topics all the time. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We love hearing from you.
It's like he's saying, look, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to figure everything out on your own. You can just come to God with all your limitations and uncertainties and ask for his guidance.
Like Solomon did. He was basically saying, God, I'm just a kid.
Yeah.
I need your help to lead these people.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is that God actually listened to him.
Right. And that humility is so important for all of us. It allows us to be open to learning and to receiving guidance and to admit when we need help. It's the opposite of that self-absorption that Golden talks about. That can actually keep us from growing and finding true fulfillment.
Yeah, it's like they say, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Exactly.
When we're too focused on ourselves and our own problems and desires, we miss out on the joy of helping others and making a difference in the world.
Golden says that kind of inward focus can actually lead to depression and unhappiness. But when we shift our attention outward to the needs of others and to serving a purpose beyond ourselves, we find a kind of fulfillment that you can't get from material things or worldly success.
It's like realizing that we weren't just created to consume and accumulate things. We were created to love, to serve, to create, to connect.
Absolutely.
And when we live our lives in alignment with that purpose, it brings a sense of satisfaction and joy that nothing else can.
And remember, it's not about doing good things just to show off or to try to earn God's favor. Like Jesus said in Matthew 6, it's about doing things in secret. It's about having a pure heart, a genuine desire to serve,
Mm.
not seeking recognition or praise.
It's about doing the right thing because it's the right thing, not because you're trying to impress someone or build up your reputation.
Exactly. And that can be a challenge today. With social media and all the pressure to look good, it's easy to get caught up in appearances and forget what really matters.
But true kingdom culture is about being authentic and having integrity, and a real desire to serve.
And Golden reminds us that everyone has something unique to offer. We might look at someone like Solomon who had the wisdom to lead a whole nation and feel like we're not good enough. But God can work through each of us, no matter how small or insignificant we might feel.
It's about having faith and trusting that God will give us what we need to make a difference.
Yeah. And that might look different for everyone. It might be serving in your community, or using your talents to create something beautiful, or fighting for justice, or just being there for the people around you.
I love that. Everyone has a part to play in building a better world.
Hmm.
And it's not always easy, is it? There will be challenges and setbacks and times when we feel like giving up.
Right.
But Solomon's story reminds us that God is faithful. He honors those who seek his wisdom and try to live according to his will.
And that's what's so beautiful about Solomon's prayer. It's a timeless guide for living a life of purpose and meaning. It's a reminder that we were created to love God and serve others, and that true fulfillment comes from aligning our lives with his kingdom.
It all comes back to seeking that understanding heart, that wisdom to know right from wrong, to make choices that reflect God's love and compassion, and to leave the world a little better than we found it.
So if you're feeling lost or unsure about your direction in life, remember Solomon's prayer. Ask God for the wisdom to fulfill his purpose for your life. Trust that as you seek his kingdom first, everything else will fall into place.
That's a great reminder. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for listening to this deep dive into Solomon's wisdom. We hope it's given you some new insights and inspired you to think about how you can live a life of purpose. If you want to keep exploring these ideas, be sure to check out Allison Knows on YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your comments. You can also follow Allison on Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok.